So how's it going? This is something different.
It's
See our
definitely different.
faces.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's definitely different, man.
I'm
I had a
joined.
Stroop waffle today for the first time right before I got on. So it's elite.
Solid, solid.
Yeah, it's pretty
Did you
good.
enjoy it?
Yeah, I think Rocco makes it look more appetizing than it actually is. Like it was good, but it's like a seven. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you tend not to really enjoy food, so that's kind of cool, honestly. You
Okay,
enjoy
all right, fine.
it. So, today, I asked for some questions, about the draft or lottery or whatever, and Mark and I are going to answer them. Mark, I don't know if you looked at the questions. Mark hasn't really like doesn't. I mean, he knows what's going on, but we have some fun stuff prepared. So let's get into it. The first question we have is from Bernardo at KNYRAXD. Why are you so high on Griffin and so low on Jabari? And I think if I'm correct, you also think AJ is a better prospect than Jabari. I think.
I've
Or
been toying with it. After doing deeper dives on both, I think I don't know. I think my issue right now is just going to be AJ's defense for sure. I mean, I really believe in Jabari being a pretty impactful defender almost off rip. And that's going to be a question for AJ for a while, but also like AJ's probably a better shooter than Jabari. I know, like when factoring in size and release point, I mean, you can definitely quibble back and forth, but I think like after going back through, like I would say that I probably feel a little bit more. And that's not like be unfair to Jabari. Like they're both nuclear level shooters, but I think AJ does take the cake as a shooter for me right now,
I'm
especially as
totally
a
with.
self-created shooter. Like Jabari is a very good self-created shooter. He's probably a better movement shooter than AJ, but AJ in terms of like actual shot preparation and making something happen with the ball in his hands to create a shot, I think I have a little bit more faith in him right now at a
Yeah,
higher level.
I am totally with you. I think we definitely think similarly here. AJ to me is just like a different level of offensive upside guy.
Yeah,
I think because he can really dribble, and really pass. And then look at this. I think the defense is a good point. And there we actually had another question that we're just going to link here, which
mm-hmm.
was Andy Roth, AR Hoop Talk asked, "Will AJ Griffin be a big liability on defense?" And our pal Marcus actually wrote about this. Our pal Marcus and Caitlin Cooper wrote about this. And as you can see
We
in the
did write
clips,
about that.
as you can see, hopefully in the clips that you know that they kind of showed, AJ is definitely kind of rough when it comes to screen navigation right now. um like he really like struggles to get skinny, and to use like the right footwork to like get around these screens. He's kind of just like loafing right here as well. I have some optimism that because he's just so burly, and I think there are rare flashes of him just blowing up screens when he is really engaged and gets his feet right. But what are your general thoughts on like AJ becoming like a passable, on ball screen defender?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not worried about it. That would be the wrong way to put it. But um, I just think the offense is so good that I mean, a lot's going to depend on the developmental system he's in. But I think that he's going to get to a level where he's fine, at least on the ball, like off the ball. Like he can make some plays off the ball, but also like I think it's more just about like him getting court time and getting all those reps is what's really essential.
Yeah.
Like Kayla and I talked about this with PD, our guy PD Webb,
Go check
about
that out
just
here.
how important it is for him to get a ton of high value reps, like not just playing to play. Like he really needs to develop his feel because he missed so much court time. Um, it's not the kind of thing where I think that he's never going to develop that. I think it's just going to take a while. But like you mentioned, like as good as his foot, like he probably has close to the best footwork offensively in the draft, and it's the opposite on defense. And I think that makes me more enticed about who he could be defensively because I think a lot of that could be repped out through again just playing games and getting to work on defensive slides and doing those things. And like you mentioned too, like I don't really think keeping the ball in front is going to be an issue for him. I think it's just going to be screens. There's a lot that tends to get brought up with him about lateral quickness. I'm not really that worried about the lateral quickness because he's got, he has the wingspan. If he moves his feet in the right direction, he doesn't really have an issue keeping guys in front. So I think again, it's just more about footwork and just getting more reps.
Yep. prudent analysis as always, and I think I'm
Appreciate
in agreement that I don't think AJ is going to be a liability on defense to directly answer the question.
But he will be off rip. Like for the first
Early,
year
yes.
or two, it's gonna be
Yes.
it's gonna be probably a little rough.
But you mentioned the feel, and like I think part of the reason like that separates AJ from Jabari for me is like the flashes of being able to feel the floor and make plays are really real. Like this is a play he's done like a couple times this year, where he's able to attack off the catch. Like he's so deadly as like an off-ball shooter that defenses respect him, and he's able to kind of draw defenders. And make these like fairly advanced like wraparound passes. Like I would say this is like a pretty advanced pass for a guy of his role. Like this is not like a super easy pass to make, twisting in the air, like around a couple long defenders. So I think like the passing flashes with AJ are certainly real as well, where Jabari just like, I think it's hard because like he's never really asked to pass. And he like definitely misses reads, but like I don't know if you'd agree that I feel like a lot of his stuff is just like him like being in shot mode more than anything.
Yeah, it's tough. Like because I mean I don't want to be unfair. Like I think that's definitely a part. Like he was, but kind of everybody at Auburn was in shot mode to a degree. So like, I mean, like just I think I clipped it in the Jabari one in the Jabari article we did, but there's a clip against Texas A&M where he gets the ball in the corner, is like smothered in the corner, and granted Wendell Green's like what, like 6 foot maybe, but it's a 2-on-1 with Wendell Green and Jalen Williams in the post, and there's like a 6. I think Quentin Jackson is defending the big, and there's like if he takes one step forward and makes like an overhead pass, like that's a bucket or a foul, and he takes the contested 3 instead. So I think like that's one of the ones where it's hard to. Like that's one of the things where I'd love to see when Mike Schmitz interviews Jabari. You know, if that,
yes, exactly.
I don't think that exact clip's going to get brought up, but I'd want to hear more about his thought process because I think like trying to decipher some of that would help with figuring out where he's at feel wise. But like even then, like you're mentioning, there are a lot of times where it's 2-on-1 at the rim, and he'll like get himself smothered or into the wrong position because he'll go up for something that's maybe a little bit that just probably isn't very there. Like he doesn't see a lot of guys. If there's somebody in the dunker spot, he doesn't see that, at least not quickly. So I'm in the same boat with you. But then again, like AJ has some of that stuff too, but to a lesser degree.
All right. I definitely agree with you. I think like to add something like this is who Jabari's been his whole career since I've been watching him. Like I think I first saw him when he was like 15 in FIBA, and like this is always who he's been, to be fair. Yeah. He's kind of like the same player he's always been, just magnified now. I'm curious to think of what you think about a clip like this, where I think about we're going to show some like Jabari clips in the future, and by the future I mean now. Where I think another separation between him and AJ is like he really struggles to create space when he's kind of dribbling. Like I look at a play like this, like how stiff and like inflexible he is. Like he is standing straight up here. He like really isn't able to gain any separation until he like pushes off and gets a nice no call. But like these kind of plays are like the wiggle isn't there for me, the flexibility isn't there for me, and then you like have a play like this from AJ. Where I'm curious to think about what you think about this play in terms of like it being a positive or negative or development. So I'm just gonna roll it, and I'm just gonna let you talk about it. Mark has not seen these plays, but I see a play like this, and I'm curious what you think about it when it comes to like AJ's handle and like his creation in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, right here already, like. I mean, I don't know. What's really tough for me with Jabari, and I wrote about this too, like, I don't think his handle is terrible, like, especially for his size. But the issue is just, like you mentioned, how upright he is, which causes him to be so loose with the ball. And he just doesn't generate any kind of downhill momentum for the most part. Like that, like he's really good as a standstill shot creator because he's like, especially side steps. He doesn't really do step backs at all, but like, yeah, side steps, anything like, any kind of like 1 to 2 dribble combination right in front or to a side, really good at. But
yeah, he's very like post, very like will way too quickly resort to like turning his back too, just because he doesn't. Well,
because I mean, like, and in fairness, like I get it. Like I think that they're like that's you can quibble on advantage, but it is like essentially an advantage. If you're walled off, it's an advantage. You're getting a minimal advantage out of it for sure. But yeah, I think like that point clips out with AJ. Actually, like the Wake Forest game, just in general for AJ, was a really good showcase. Like I think he probably touches the paint more in one game against Wake Forest than Jabari did in like SEC play, which is an exaggeration for sure. But like that's kind of what we're looking at. I think AJ was a lot harder for defenders to just completely wall off. Like, I mean, not even, I think like that's just that played out. I think you see so many times where Jabari, like, especially I thought the Texas A&M game was a great showcase. Like, they played his right hand the entire game. They had a couple of missteps because you can never be perfect with the defensive game plan. But like, I mean, they made it very clear. They're like, we know his left hand is his weak hand. He doesn't want to go to it. He's going to go up to his right. We're going to just contest everything. We're not going to send to, and we're going to force him to make plays to his left if he wants to. And like the one time he does, he trips over himself. They end up calling it a tripping foul, but I mean, you can quibble over it. I don't think it would have been called a tripping foul in an NBA game. And that's just part of where the problem is right now. Like, even if I don't necessarily trust AJ to make great plays off the bounce right now, the flashes are there, like you mentioned, and he can get there.
I see a play like
that's
this, like he is using like head fakes and like some light manipulation with the pacing of his dribbles as well. You can just see he's like more able to like move his body downward than Jabari is. And obviously, he loses the ball here and he kicks it out. It's not like a hugely impactful play, but that's the kind of stuff I see from a player like AJ, where I'm like, yeah, when he like, tightens like the ball control and learns how to position himself and like more like what he needs to be doing in an offense. Like I could see him being like a real weapon with that handle inside. So
well, yeah. And my other thing too is like a lot's going to be brought up about, what kind of, because I wrote about this too, like what kind of like if your training staff and player development team is really like, yeah, we see Jabari, and like I think there is some credence to it too. Like he very much still reads to me somebody who's not done growing athletically. Like he's a very young dude. If your team is like pretty confident in developing his flexibility and ability to bend his body, especially below his waist, then I think I can understand a lot more of like some of the excitement for him as being maybe more of a primary guy. But I think I would also look at that and be like, it's the same thing with AJ. He has less of the same issue with his lower body, and the handle is just much better. So like, I think that would be like where I'm getting, where I think you're getting at is kind of where like, when you're doing a lot of the same problem solving, but to a higher degree for somebody else, it's like, okay, well, we got to reevaluate this.
Exactly. All right. Talked plenty about those two. Hopefully those were good answers. Switching gears. Felipe Ciento says, can Darion Sebron make a day one impact on a good team? I would say no.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no on that one too.
I am a big Sebron guy. I really like his upside as like a rim pressure guy, but like it's hard for most rookies to make real impact day one on their teams. And Sebron in a lot of ways is just really raw in his like processing of the game, and he can't really shoot at this point, and the defense is not great. So I would say no.
Yeah, I mean, just to not, obviously it's not a one-to-one comp or example, but pretty much like I'd imagine Sebron's going to be a late second or UDFA guy, and it's going to be very much like David Duke for Brooklyn. Because they're like obviously not the same guys. David's like a little bit stronger, but they have the same issue. Like they can get to the rim, but I think Darion, if I remember, they finished 48% at the rim this year, which is not good. Like that is really rough. And that's not.
He had like the most rim attempts like literally ever, but was just like never able to really convert them.
I will say though, like I don't know if you feel the same philosophically, but like I am very much in on guys like that. Like if you can get to the rim, I'm going to invest in you and see what can happen. Like I just think a day one impact is really hard, because like even now, like I know you've grown on him finally, but after me pestering everybody about him, like Darius Baisley, somebody who gets to the rim, he made really big impacts. I mean, hey, he shot over 50% from two this year, so like that's
good on you.
Good on the first 2 years.
Yes,
but yeah, like exactly. Like I think you can develop counters, you can develop some of the stuff once you get there, but like you can't. I just think it's a lot harder to be like you can't get to the rim. We're going to develop that. Like that's just not really a thing.
Yeah, like Sebron, like advantage creation is so valuable. Like so important being able to tilt NBA defenses. I think Sebron's really going to be able to do that one day if he gets a shot, but like it certainly could not work out because he has a long way to go. And no, he's not going to make a day one impact, which is not a slight on Darion Sebron at all.
And he has like the best name in the draft too.
He has a very
being honest. So like
all right. So our pal Will Muckian, Will asks, how many wins is Jabari Smith worth on the Rockets? I assume you mean in year one. I don't know. probably not that many. Like rookies generally aren't worth that many wins, especially on not very good teams. I don't know. What do you think?
That one's just so tough to answer because I have no idea what to think of the Rockets next year. Like I probably am a little bit higher on the Rockets than you, which is not saying a lot, but like I I don't know.
I
I
like
really
I like their core. Let's set
yeah.
that straight. I am a fan of
Yeah,
their
I know.
core.
I like a lot of the guys that they have. I just am interested to see how they all mesh together. And I'm not sure that
Yeah,
at least offensively, it's a little bit harder for me to see what the pathway is with Jabari there. Like they're a team very much so like I would love to like I don't think it's gonna happen, but like if the Pacers traded Malcolm Brogdon, like I don't know if because like I want somebody who can be like a little bit more of like a game manager and just
yeah.
do things to set guys
I
up
think
because I think
like
even with KPJ's improvements in that area this year, they still really lack that in the half court. And I think that would help, especially for like trying to develop Jalen and trying to develop somebody like Jabari, which would make me feel a lot better about that.
I think like at least early in his career, I think Jabari's like shot making defense kind of makes him like feel like more of a floor raiser to me than like guy who like adds to your ceiling. But when you have a team like the Rockets who are just like so young, and like all of their like most promising guys are still like really developing, like I don't know. I just don't see someone like that adding a ton of wins in year one. Obviously, not saying he couldn't in the future, but I don't think it really makes too much of an impact in year one. All right. What do we have next? Logan Howell, Logan HUTK asks, what is your star case for each of your top four? He says Paolo, Chet, Ivy, AJ, and what current or past star is the best role analog? This is a kind of long question, so I'm just gonna like let's do rapid fire. Paolo, rapid fire star case, and weaknesses to overcome.
Blake Griffin Pistons is very much so the
Yes,
Paolo case,
the cool
except
stylistic comp. Agreed.
yeah, yeah. And I think like the biggest thing that he's gonna have to overcome, I don't really think he has that much to overcome, is my thing. Like I was talking about this again. I was talking about this with PD earlier today, but like he's getting pushed a lot to not be the number one guy in the class, and I'm not gonna quibble anybody who like has others number one, but to me, I think with the way that the NBA has and is still shifting, like Powell just makes the most sense for me at number one. I guess
Yep.
efficiency is what people will bring up, but I made this a rapid fire turned into an 150 word response for me.
It
Sorry.
happens. It's March Schindler. What do you expect? This one. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think at least early enough, it's just going to be like decisiveness and like
Yeah.
because he's not going to be in he's going to be playing in the smallest role he's ever played in, or like maybe since he was like 11 or something, when he's in the league. And I think there's going to be an adjustment to that, like making smart decisions off the catch, making like quick passes when he's not able to generate his own advantage. But I think that's like generally nitpicky.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not really worried. So Chet, I'll do Chet this time. The biggest weakness for me is Chet. Like, or the biggest thing he has to overcome for me is just kind of figuring out like his connective offensive role. Like I really don't think like strength. I'm not going to do that. Like we're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be an awesome defender, but can he like execute like simple offensive actions? Can he execute dribble handoffs? And can he pass on the short roll? Can he like make decisions out of the post, and in the high post? Because it's not always something he's like really been asked to do at Gonzaga. I think it's something he probably struggles with. But like
Yeah.
the
I
ceiling
think
is so real as like a real defensive anchor with plus additive offensive skills. Like it's like a real star ceiling that people are like weirdly underselling.
yeah, no, I agree. Like I think the biggest thing for me is just gonna be rolling because he didn't do that at all at Gonzaga. Like what do you look at like as a pick and roll guy? I'm not really worried about the finishing, like you mentioned. Like I want to see what do you look like as a DHO guy? What do you look like on short roll? So
Exactly.
that'll
It's
be my
like
biggest thing.
it's like is your screen timing good? All that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Last one this question. We'll do Ivy. And we're gonna talk a little. We're gonna talk a lot more about Ivy today. But Ivy, weaknesses are things to overcome for stars. What do you look like as a star? Analog if you want it.
Mid-range shot creation is going to be the biggest thing. Finding his pacing and tempo, which like I still think it's been undersold how much he made strides with that this year. We were talking about this in our chat yesterday, about looking at what his context and fit was like. I think like the spacing was low key like pretty good for him. Like it did a lot of things to really amplify the best qualities he had, which I don't think we're running pick and roll. Like, I understand people wanting to see him run more pick and roll, but I think in terms of actual efficacy, I question whether that would look better this year.
I
Obviously,
totally
it did
agree
towards
with
the
you.
end, but I mean, to me, my analog with him is still Victor Oladipo. I think like that's where I tend to get to, and I think he has a better shot profile than Victor did his entire time in Indiana. So
Hmm.
I'm not saying he's going to be better or that he's going to be the same guy, but I think that there are some similarities there, especially in terms of like actual movement and the way that they're used to.
Yep. I'm totally with you. Mid-range scoring, intermediate, pacing and shot creation. I'm just gonna add this. I also said this yesterday in our chat, but I think I think the context was like good to showcase his strengths, but like less good for his development long term. Like I think
Yeah.
like the way Matt Painter used him like in lots of off ball and transition was amplified his strengths and was good for his stock in the eyes of mainstream media and teams. But I think this is my experience, like a lot of like more surface level draft analysis and stuff like isn't really as adept about thinking about context and role when it comes to development, which is super important. And I think something I and you both try to do when we're thinking about the draft. And I think running more pick and rolls and more complex on ball decision making actions probably would have been better for his development just to get more reps in that, but it wouldn't have looked as nice because he just isn't perfect there yet.
Yep.
All right, next question we have Julian JCBN MBA says, would Duren at 5 be a reach for the Pistons considering Ivey and AJ Griffin would still be available? What do you think?
If Ivey's available, then I probably would. I don't like saying reach, but like I mean, I have Jalen as number 5 on my board right now. Like, and again, it's less about boards. It's more like it's all context dependent. Like you mentioned, like I think every team should have their own board for sure. But like, I mean, imagining Jalen Duren would be the best spacer for Cade that he has right now. Like in terms of somebody who can create separation for him with screens. Something that he needs to work on still for sure.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean,
I think
not to dunk on Isaiah Stewart or anything, but it's going to be like really nice for Cade to have a receiver that isn't going to look like that. Like Isaiah Stewart's a nice player, but he's not
like Isaiah got really good at interior screening for him this year as the year went on. But like,
I think like the above rim finishing, like Cade, like Jalen Duren, Cade can put the ball here, like anywhere in the circle, and Jalen Duren dunks it. Like that is such a luxury that Cade hasn't had since he like played with Greg Brown in AAU.
I forgot they played together, but and I would say too, like you and I are both so in on what Jalen's defensive ceiling could be. That I think to me, like 5 is not a reach. And there's a whole conversation we had about that I should write about and probably do the Jalen Duren case, but just time wise, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Like he is not just like some big, like, okay, this is a very different level of prospect compared to just like your typical drop big. And that's not that as slander, but like, I do think he's getting billed as that a lot. And it's like, no, don't do that. He's good. So
yeah, we have a couple during. I think just like Cade makes everything so easy. Like anyone could go with Cade. We got a couple Duren questions, so we're just gonna kind of chug through the Duren ones. How far lateral Kyo at Kai CAIOMT says, how far can Duren drop before it gets ridiculous? What do you think about Duren to the Pacers? I think Duren like is gonna drop. Like I could see him like going in like the late lottery or even lower. I think anything after like 12 or 13 is pretty crazy.
If he goes outside the lottery, I don't want to say I'd be surprised. I don't have intel like that, but it would be, to me, I think it would be a mistake if he went outside the lottery. I think it would be a mistake if he went outside the top 10 personally. To the Pacers, man, if they did that, here are the only ways where I would be okay with it if it was for the Pacers. Number one, you trade Miles Turner, which I think that's something that they should have already. I mean, they've contemplated doing it for forever. I think the only reason it didn't happen last year is because he got the stress reaction in his foot. If he doesn't, I'm pretty sure he's gone. What the hell is happening with Isaiah Jackson if you do that? Because they have pretty much strictly played him at the 5 so far. So if you're drafting Jalen Duren, you have to be taking the long-term view and really trying to get the most out of Ijax's flashes that he's
I'd say they're
like,
pretty like they're like fairly role analogous, like at least on offense.
I think like they're fairly role analogous, but it's more like viewing Ijax as somebody who has like, I mean, they've both had like passing flashes and show good feel at times, but like I think for Ijax it's more like he's shown a lot more as a shooter. Like,
Right.
can you actually coax that out of him and be willing to develop that? And I just question that they are, because they didn't do it at all this year. So
All right. I totally agree with you. Out of the lottery would be crazy for Duren. Like he's so good. He's
very good.
One more Duren question. This is also a Thunder question. Would Chet and 2 and Duren at 12 be intriguing? This was by Ritvik Yaduru. Excuse me for the horrible butchering of your name. I think that, I mean, Duren at 12, like, regardless of fit, is ridiculous, I think. So I'll talk about that first, because I have clips for this as well. I think, like, I've definitely talked about this a lot. Giving Josh Giddey a lob threat and just like a spacer like Duren would be so awesome. It would be so cool. So I mean, you see like clips like this where Giddey is able to like use his manipulation and his ability to wait to find guys like Favors. And obviously, like the help defense here is nothing special. But like Favors, it can't really jump much anymore. Like similar to with Kate, like Giddey can just put the ball like anywhere here, and like nobody's like nobody can touch it. Like absolutely, like almost nobody can touch it. And again with like Shea, who's like turning into a really impressive like pocket passer and interior passer out of his initial drives. Like no offense to Isaiah Roby, but like this never happens with Jalen Duren. Like like Duren is someone who I think I actually probably like in the long term definitely trust to make this pass. I don't know about you, but I definitely think he's a guy who
no,
makes
I think
like
so
this.
too. Yeah, no, I agree. I think my question would just be more about like knowing personalities for Duren and Chet, and I don't claim to know that, but I think that's just something when you like drafting two guys, they're not going to be the same position, but there are going to be some, I wouldn't say limitations playing them together, but there's like, okay, there will be roadblocks at times. And I think like it's going to take a really, I like Mark Tignall so far quite a bit, but a lot's just going to depend on what's going on with the rest of the roster, because right now the spacing is awful on that roster. I do think like you mentioned, I think Jalen can improve some of that through his verticality, because they really didn't have.
I definitely think you want to get a shooter out of one of those two picks.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think a lot of it's going to be how, you really have to develop Chet into a shooter. And I think he will, but like the level of shooter is going to be interesting, because like just given what the rest of the roster is right now. I think
Chet and Duren could work. And I certainly think like, if you're just
I think it's one that works more down the line than right now. And that's
which could be fine with OKC's timeline. And like if you're like, I mean, if you're a believer in the talent, and like if like you get Chet at 2 because he's the best player available, and Duren's like by far the best player at 12, I'd probably say go for it. Maybe over like a lesser player who maybe is more of like a role fit. It would be interesting. I certainly would like to. It would be kind of cool. I don't know.
I mean, just imagining that defensive front court in 3 years is like kind of nuts.
Ridiculous.
Especially considering like they literally like, but see, that's where it also gets weird, because they just spent, I mean, I know this is me thinking too much, but like you just spent that pick on JRE, and he was really good last year defensively. And he's still like, I mean, he very much profiles as a 4 and small ball 5. So you're automatically like, okay, you're a bench player from now on. Like, that is, again, like, that's just tough stuff to sell to guys when they're that young in their career. So I don't know, it'd be interesting.
It would be interesting. I'm excited to see what OKC ends up doing. I've got a couple questions about the Pistons and Keegan Murray, mostly leaning to a negative tone. But I'm just going to neutrally ask you, what do you think about, like I think we've both established enough that Keegan, like in the top 4 or 5, is probably not the most prudent decision. But what would you think about Keegan to a team like the Pistons and with a player like Cade?
I think it's interesting. Like I love what he could do for him as a screener. Like, I think to me the idealized version of him is like very much so somebody who is, getting obviously a ton of off-ball actions because he is a very real shooter. Using him a lot to screen for Cade to just try and make things more murky for defenses. And I think the biggest thing is going to be, like we talked about on the pod we did not that long ago, like how his development comes in his handle and attacking off closeouts and off the bounce, because if you get Keegan to a level where like he is comfortable attacking mismatches, and he is able to really attack off the close too, like pairing him and Cade together would be pretty awesome. Like I love the idea of that. Again, like I think where they're picking at makes a difference too, but I don't think that it would be a terrible move for them.
Yeah, I think Cade just like helps out everyone, and I think he definitely adds an element that they don't have. I just think value wise, it's gonna be better options. But like it's gonna be another good player next to Cade, which is always nice.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna do some rapid fire ish. I've got a lot of who should we take at X? Who should X team take at X pick? So
okay, let me pull up Tankathon really quick.
We're gonna do a couple of these. So let's go. I'm actually gonna say this from the last. We have first one? We have Herb's Burner asks, who should the Pels draft at 8?
Johnny Davis.
Johnny Davis would be cool. I like Sohan there as well. This kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like you already have like a gazillion like defensive wings, but I never think it hurts to like add more. And if if better guys aren't on the board, I do like Johnny Davis as well a lot. I think that
I might be thinking like too much about fit, but I do think especially for a team right now that like they very much want to be back in the playoffs next year. I think Johnny, like especially watching in the playoffs and like watching throughout the year, they just lack shot creation outside of CJ. And obviously Zion is going to change that.
Is going to be
exactly.
Big,
so I think like to me, Johnny is like he would be so perfect as a Pelican. I think he should go higher than 8 at times. Depends on the day, but he would be my ideal fit for the Pels right now.
I think those Johnny and Sohan are the two for me. I think that are the best in that realistic range. I mean, I still think Johnny Davis has a ceiling. And I do think he would be very, very cool for them. All right. Best fit for OKC at 2. Just take whoever you want because we don't know who's
I kind of want to say Chet because like they already like obviously you always want to like draft more potential creative guys, but like I think now you're in the stage of like I want to see what happens with Shea and Giddey. Like you're trying to figure out what they can look like together. Get people who are going to be awesome role players. Like Chet's going to be a superstar role player, in my opinion. Like that's not meant as a degrading thing. Like I think he'll be an all-star. But like, yeah, I would probably if Chet's available too, I think it'd be him for me.
Agreed. And he kind of at the point where like long term, I mean, I think Powell's going to be awesome off ball. I think he's going to have a lot of utility, but you're not getting the most out of him if you're not training him to have lots of on ball usage. And you're at the point where you want Shea and Giddey having as many of the reps as you can. And even like guys like Trey Mann, I think deserve the on ball reps as well. So
definitely.
Chet, I mean, covers for so many weaknesses they have defensively as well at the rim.
And let's not forget, not to plug myself, but I wrote like their defense was like legit for about half the season. And that was like I think they were playing Derek Favors like 15 minutes a game and he was missing every other game. And they were like they were a legitimately very good defense. And I think if you just and that was while playing like Isaiah Roby and JRE at center mostly. So like if you add Chet, like
I think one of my favorite things about Chet is he's like kind of a safety blanket prospect for me for other young guys because he finishes at the rim. He's a great catcher. He's going to play awesome defense. He's going to cover for mistakes. And I think he just makes life easier and more bearable and more fruitful hopefully in the long term for guys like Giddey and Shea and Trey Mann. So I would take Chet. I think we agree here. I know we have at least a couple more of these. Who would you take for the Pistons at 5 if not Keegan Murray? Who would be your top target there?
Well, let's think it through. All right, so if it's my ideal draft, it's probably going Paolo, Chet, and then Jaden and Jabari are normally like right linked there. I'm still toying with whether or not I would have AJ above Jabari. So I think though, I mean, at 5, I probably would go. I don't know. I think I would probably go AJ.
I would as well.
Yeah, I think if that's where it's at,
AJ or Duren, we might pick depending. As we kind of mentioned before, Duren would be very cool as like a lob vertical spacer for Cade. I think AJ is just like you have another guy who could potentially in a couple of years be another shot creator next to Cade because that is something they're going to need long term.
Especially considering too, I think they were last in the NBA in shooting for like the first 3 or 4 months of the season. It picked up towards the end, but it's still going to be a concern for them.
Yeah, Absolutely. I'm in agreement with you there. Who would you take if you are the Knicks at 11? This is from Kurt Schultz.
This is a good question.
Yeah, this is an
That's
interesting
so
one because it's
tough.
like
Like
this is an
the
interesting
Knicks
one.
are
It's like I think
they're
I
a
know who
weird
I
team.
would go with.
I mean, it would probably be Tari for me.
Yeah, I think I would take. I mean, he's probably not going to go this high, but I think I'd probably go with Blake Wesley.
Oh yeah,
I think.
I am like Blake back of the first round right now. We
Oh
like view Blake
man,
very differently. I cannot get there with him.
I'm very into.
Yeah,
Oh, what do you think about Malachi there? Yes or no?
Malachi would be interesting, but I personally think that they like I'm obviously they're still a young team. I wouldn't consider them set at guard, but like they already have like 4 or 5 guys who should be getting rotation minute at
Yeah,
the 1 and 2. I think ideally, like if you're drafting Malachi for to play at the 3, then I don't really know what you're doing. Like I just think I view like they need much more in terms of linking at the 3 spot, in my opinion. Like I
yeah.
think because especially too, like they like playing RJ. I mean anywhere, like they'll play him 2, 3, and 4. So it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
But I would probably
I
be tough for
think
me.
Tari would be a great option. Real upside as like a slashing, defensive 3-4 kind of guy. Who is on a nice shooting curve. I like that a lot. My thought for Blake Wesley is just like I think he could provide in a long term like a creation element that the Knicks don't really have in that guard room. But I do think it's fair that like they're potentially a little too far. Like they're not really on the same timeline, and might get more out of someone who can fill a bigger hole and is like a similar level prospect. So I can definitely get down with Tari
Hey,
for them.
I believe in IQ, man. IQ, I love IQ. It's gonna happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly could.
it
I
already is
honestly
happening,
don't
but
know is yeah, I
just
mean I
don't tell
haven't watched.
Tibbs.
I mean, this is why I have you here because I don't watch nearly as much NBA basketball as you do. I think most people in the world don't. But
Well, yeah, but yeah, it's
all right. So
blessing and a curse.
Knicks is gonna be interesting. I mean that like Tankathon has them taking like Duren, which would be incredible, obviously. But like I don't know. Like if Duren or like Johnny Davis like falls, like you take those guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Johnny Davis
Yeah.
would be awesome for the Knicks. Like he's like a guy who I would. I mean, at the 2, I would take him
Oh,
because I think he
for
makes a
sure.
lot of sense playing alongside anybody that they have playing at the 1. But yeah,
For sure. We have a couple questions about Shaedon Sharpe. I think like the one about the Pistons taking Sharpe, one about like earliest landing point for Sharpe, like King Sharpe. So do you have any Shaedon Sharpe takes really?
I mean, I think I've watched about as much of him as anybody else. Like there's not a lot that you can catch up on that's very recent. I understand the sell for him. I just am not there. Like I think, especially taking him like for me with the Pistons, I'm not there. Like I think with the Pistons, with who Cade already is and has proven himself to be, like they cannot really afford to dick around with this, in my opinion. Like this is very much so like, okay, we need to get ready now because Cade is already almost that good. Like,
Yeah. I mean, he's already like closing in on like all-star level play. As
yeah,
a 20-year-old. I
I
totally
think
agree.
Shaedon to me is tough because like I think he's gonna need to play G League. Like no shit, like that's probably an easy statement, but like
Yeah.
I want him to go to a place that has a good G League system and is going to get reps there and come up and play NBA too. But like, what team has the time to rep him out? Like maybe San Antonio. Like I
I
think
feel
San
like the
Antonio could
Pistons
actually
are
be very interesting
yeah.
for
I
him.
think like the Kings are just like not in a spot to take him like that, like with their timeline. They really
Yeah,
don't have
Kings
room
are like I would low key. I would say do not draft Shaedon Sharpe through the Kings right now.
yeah. I think
Given like the Sabonis move was very clearly like a we need to be better now move. Shaedon would be the opposite. So I don't
yeah.
really get that move for them.
I think Shaedon is interesting. I mean, again, like I've watched like a good amount of his last EYBL season. And like the off-ball scoring is very real. Like he's
Yeah.
a crazy leaper. Like he can like I think the shooting, I think I'm a little lower on the shooting than a lot of people because it's like very inconsistent at this point. But like he can really get hot and hit shots in a lot of different ways. And like I like the way he moves his body as well with his handle, even though it's like pretty loose now. He's just doesn't really have this straight line burst to create advantages. Really lacking in terms of like awareness and processing when he's making decisions on the ball, and defensively is just like a pure project who you like bet on tools. So I think for a guy who's like kind of like a straight like toolsy upside swing. He's not as toolsy as you need to like be a guy who take in like the top 5. That's just my general blanket Shaedon take.
Yeah, I think if he were able to get, I mean, he does not get to the rim right now.
Yeah.
And that's not everything. Like, I think again, like I still think Jabari is one of the 4 or 5 best players in the draft, even though he doesn't get to the rim. But like, if you're betting on somebody who is that far away, I don't know. It's a tough sell. So yeah, we're in the same boat.
All right. We're gonna end with a couple of like more NBA centric questions. No,
Okay.
obviously draft centric, but they're NBA centric as well. So we're gonna keep with the Kings. And we're kind of gonna do all of these at once. Because I think they're gonna kind of mesh together. But I want to mention everyone who got the question. There was someone who asked who the Kings should take it for. I think it was someone who asked about Shaedon, asked who the Kings. Yeah, it was Coop Giant 2013 asked who the Kings should take it for. What? And then I'm gonna run the couple. Cash Yiggy 12 asks, any thoughts on a potential Fox Ivey backcourt? Another Charlie Bender asks, should they consider trading the pick? And then one more person asks, I think a similar question, -5 stars. Again, would you rather trade the pick? So general Kings thoughts. I think Ivey would be really cool for them. Like, I think he doesn't necessarily like I can see the case for and against it. I think the Kings have, especially after losing Halliburton, have like real issues when it comes to like primary decision making and some of like the shooting and like the wing defense stuff that like needs addressing and are potential areas to address it. But I think like building on your strengths and like making your strengths stronger is always a cool thing to do. And like some of like the off ball work, some of like the passing, cutting, with Fox and Ivey would be very, very cool. So Mark Schindler wrote about the Kings earlier in the season.
And then they fucking traded Tyrese Halliburton.
They did
an hour and 15 minutes after I released this.
We're gonna take some of these clips. Just like imagine, like you can imagine Ivey in the Fox role, like attacking closeouts like this. You can imagine Fox in the Ivey role or in the Halliburton role. Again, like Halliburton is going to shoot this. You can imagine like Fox or Ivey is absolutely cooking this closeout, putting the defense in rotation as well. And then, I mean, it's just like Fox attacking second side actions is going to be unbelievable. Like if you have an inch of space, and you probably remember this play, he's unstoppable.
I was watching that live and I was just like,
I don't know.
Wow.
Like
it's
like
insane.
You show Ivey a tilted 4 and incredible things are gonna happen. And I think
is he faster than Prospect Fox?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think he might be.
I think so.
That's what's so crazy, like talking about him, because Victor was like crazy shifty and quick coming out of Indiana, and obviously like when he was first in Orlando, and then when he cut down again for Indiana. But like, I mean, Jaden's even quicker. Like, and he has more pop too. Like Victor obviously had pop and could really throw it down. But like Jaden's nasty,
unbelievable.
But like you're mentioning, like what's so cool, like I'm still toying with it. It's something I might write about because I'm trying to do I'm trying to do like a 60-person mock because I'm tired. I don't really feel like doing a big board because
60 people.
Well, yeah, because it's 2 rounds.
I thought you meant you were gonna have like 60 people.
Oh, no. I should have explained that better. It's a 2-round mock. But
60 prospects player.
I'm toying with who I would send to Sacramento, and I think about Jaden because I wrote about this right at the beginning of right after the trade deadline, and we saw like I think 2 games of Fox and Sabonis, and I love it. Like they stopped leaning into it, which would really bother me. After like the first like 5 or 6 games, they played like average defense. Their offense was fine, and you saw a lot of stuff in the half where it was like, oh wow, okay, like tons of movement, a lot of Sabonis like operating as a point guard, which like I think that made less sense for the Pacers as time went on, given what their roster was. But it makes a lot of sense for a team like the Kings, where like De'Aaron Fox does primary things in terms of being able to bend a defense, but like you mentioned, like the decision making isn't always awesome. I think you're going to get a lot of the same stuff with Jaden and stuff that I want to see develop and change. But like, I think you can envision like how the fuck are you containing Jaden
Yeah.
Ivey
I
and
think
De'Aaron Fox running off
like
ball, especially
you can
with
build a
like
really potent offense, like with Jaden Ivey and De'Aaron Fox, like two of like the probably like 3 or 4 fastest guys in the league instantly, most explosive guys in the league on dribble handoffs and in transition and backdoor cuts. I think if Ivey never develops to the level of primary decision maker that maybe he could, I think there's a ceiling on that kind of offense, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
When
But in
those
terms
kind
of
of
like this
shenanigans
team,
aren't as effective, but like
but them just getting good in the
that would be
regular season,
so cool.
like just like taking steps forward, I think you could see a lot of it. What would be difficult for me, like I'm definitely probably higher on Davion than you are. Like I think Davion can be a starting point guard in the league. It's just gonna like I almost think like they need to start him because he has like this really I want to say Chuck from Chuck and Darts put me onto this and I looked into it more and it was like very true. Like he is very much a rhythm shooter. And I like there are some guys who just can't grow out of that. Like basically if Davion isn't starting, he is like a non-shooter from three. Like he shoots like 30% or something like that when he doesn't start. It's close to that. And you like he's somebody who very much needs to have the ball in his hands to get into a rhythm. And I don't think it's a bad thing because I do think like he's capable of making like good pick and roll reads, getting to the rim, getting 2 feet in the paint, and just making good plays. But I think it all is going to depend a lot on like how you make 3-guard lineups work. Because I think they're already trending towards that regardless. Like I think Fox is pretty much like becoming a lot more of an off-ball player now. We saw that as the year went on.
Yeah, it seems like that's where his strengths lied.
And also like who knows who's available at 5? Like I think like it's very possible they trade the pick. And I think a lot of people would clown it if the Kings did it, but it's also like I just think it's important.
If you're going to trade out, this is the draft to do it. Like it really is.
I just think it's important for people to remember it's not about what you would do. It's about where the team's going. Like, yes, it might be great to take like this guy who ends up being the 3rd best player in the draft class, but also Monty McNair does not have 2 seasons to find out. And you can say that that's on him. That's their ownership, man. Like there's not really a lot you can do about it. So I think I'm interested to see what they can do. I mean, if anything, like I don't hate Johnny at 5, if we're being honest, but I still would so much rather see them somehow get a real 3 because they just don't have one. They haven't had one in like 3 or 4 years. So
any ideas of who that could be? We had one question that was like, what could a package of Harry B, Rashawn, and like the 4th pick get you? And like I don't have sources or really know like
oh wow,
who's going to be available
because that's a lot. I mean, Rashawn's stock has taken a massive hit and rightfully so. Just given some, obviously we're not privy to every single detail off the court. I hope everything's okay with his son and his ex-wife, and that's okay. It's a murky situation.
It's like not something we have information on really, and
yeah,
it seems like a bad situation.
But it's definitely
not really good to comment on.
Yeah. In terms of what they could actually get, like I know that things like they kicked around trading for Jeremy Grant, who I don't think would be like the worst fit. But except in terms of like, to me, like if they get a 3, they like I think it needs to be a plus connective wing, like especially like we talked about with Fox. Like not that he's a terrible playmaker. I think he's had moments.
What do you think about acquiring a guy like Tyrese Halliburton?
Shut up. I mean, I'm trying to think of 3s in the NBA that are even gettable right now.
Yeah,
for the most part, like the kind
really
of guys that you want, they're not available. Like I would love PJ Washington there. Like I don't think you're trading that much. I mean, I don't think like you're definitely not trading that much to PJ Washington. Like I think like you're trading like a future first and Rashawn Holmes and probably something else too to get.
PSA: don't trade your 2023 firsts. Don't do it.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
At least if you are like confident you're going to be bad.
Just convince Jordan Walsh to sign enter this year's draft.
He's so good.
I love Jordan Walsh. He's going to be awesome. But
that guy's awesome. He's so good.
Like to me, that's the kind of guy. Well, because even then, PJ's not really a 3, but he's more. He can function more as
someone who can.
I think Harrison can
add like, connective decision making. Who can make off ball passes? Who can shoot the ball.
And attack closeouts too, because like the issue for Sacramento is they always have either they have somebody who can defend the 3 but they can't shoot, or they have somebody who can shoot but they can't defend the 3 for shit, and that's why they ended up just playing a 3-guard lineup most of the time. Because Mo Harkless, even when he started, was like you're like but the amount of times he passed out of an open corner look or just didn't shoot was like mind blowing, and that's the roster construction is rough, but they do have better basketball players now, which helps.
Yes, they do. All right. We're gonna end talking about, continuing with Ivy. Our good pal A. Kelly asks thoughts on Trey Ivy backcourt. Very fun. Again, I think I feel like we've been talking about this like ever since Trey's been in the league. Like he's so good for players who have these decision making field concerns, and who are talented like off catch second side attackers. Because Trey just commands so much gravity all over the floor. And Ivy needs like millimeters to make you pay. And just like in that way, I think it really is great. But I'm curious just to hear what you think about that. Just general fit and about what you think about that for Ivy long term.
I would be pretty in on that, like especially with where Atlanta's at, just needing more talent on it. Like honestly, like not that they don't have like a good roster, not that they don't have like they need more star power next to Trey. Like that sounds like simple, but I think Ivy could be that guy, and especially like we mentioned, like I still am not there. Like I know some of the Morant comps are just because of like he's super bouncy and quick and shit, but like he just doesn't have close to the passing ability, which like duh, but also I think that just makes me more interested in seeing him get maximized as a secondary early, because I think he's a guy like we're talking about, like him playing alongside Trey could be like, I'm not saying he would be rookie of the year, but I mean, he could average like close to 20 points per game early in his career just playing off of Trey. Like
Trey, I mean, you like imagine him like in like the closeout attacking like Kevin Herter, or like DeAndre Hunter roles, or like in the guard.
Yeah, and it's even like think about it like
no slight to those players, but like they are not the second side creators and second side scorers that Ivy will be the second he steps into the league.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like he's not going to be a great like secondary playmaker, in my opinion. Like I think ideally you're growing him into pick and roll reads and stuff. But like you're talking about, like DeAndre Hunter does not get to the rim off closeouts. It's a one dribble pull up
or
like same
or
thing
shot
with and like Jaden Ivey, if he's attacking closeout, he's getting to the rim. And then think about it, like, okay, if Trey goes to the bench, this has been a problem for Atlanta a ton. Like what is happening when Trey's on the bench? Ivy can get his reps running offense. Like I think that would be
exactly
actually okay. I'm very in on this.
I love this. I love this because like, yeah, I think this is so perfect for his like immediate fit and maybe feeling fit, and it's also an opportunity for him to work on the things that he needs to, because like, who else on the Hawks are you going to be prioritizing? I mean, like Sharif, inshallah.
Well, yeah.
But like, but I mean, like who else in their rotation is like really someone you want commanding lots of on-ball reps when Trey's off the ball? Like nobody really. And like Jaden going from like play finishers and like Travion and he who shall not be named, the big Canadian, to like John Collins and
Capella. Hey, that big Canadian is going to be an NBA player, man. So watch out.
I he might take the Nigerian Basketball League Association by storm. We will see.
Wow.
But yes, I think we both agree that Jaden and Trey and Jaden and Hawks will be really
very fun.
Very cool. Very, very cool. That is about all we have for questions. I mean, there are some like repeats and ones like, yes, the Shea, Paolo, Giddey trio would be a lot of fun. That is the truth. But yeah, that's about it. This was kind of random. I think this was fun though.
I really enjoyed this.
Marcus, is there anything you want to plug? I'm sure we could do a whole other like 10-minute segment on things you have to plug.
Follow me on Twitter.
I say that with love.
Love. Follow me on Twitter at @mg_schindler. I have actually, today's like one of the first days I haven't had to write in forever, so I'm kind of just chilling today and tomorrow. Today's Thursday, right? I think
correct.
It's Thursday.
It is Thursday.
Cool. Thursday. Yeah, so I'm chilling today and tomorrow. I should have some more drafts coming out soon. I have like started a couple of outlines for some actual draft like breakdowns that I want to do. Should have a mock draft coming out. It's supposed to come out tomorrow. Yeah, but it's probably gonna be a Monday thing. But we'll see.
Exciting.
I'll talk to my editor about that one. But yeah, I have a lot
Mark
of
Setter, if you're watching
now.
this, drop the mock draft.
Kyle Odegaard, great guy, awesome guy, my favorite editor to work with. But
Shout
yeah,
out.
appreciate
Shout
you
out.
for having me
Yeah.
on, man.
Of course. Yeah. Just subscribe if you haven't. I don't think I've ever actually told people to subscribe. Like, I don't really do like the YouTube thing.
Oh, this is gonna be on YouTube. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that.
Like,
I would
I
have
don't
done my
really,
hair. Yeah.
I don't really, your hair looks fantastic, Mark. I don't
Yeah,
really
yeah.
do the, the thing where I'm like and subscribe. I kind of just like record my things and leave. But, while we're here, like and subscribe if you'd like, leave a comment, go follow Mark on Twitter. Yeah. Have a nice day.